Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. You can talk about anything other than a couple of things. We have got that story, plus whether or not to halt genetic interventions in conservation. But our first of three cozy gatherings this week, we begin with this billionaire Trump ally and his son are building an unprecedented media empire. Journalists at CBS News reeled as they digested news reports that opinion journalist Barry Weiss, a fierce critic of the mainstream media, would become the editor-in-chief of the straight-laced legacy brand. 2 months earlier, there had been cautious optimism in Midtown Manhattan newsroom, according to two CBS News staffers who spoke that you don't tell that we told you all this stuff. Movie producer David Ellison, son of billionaire software Zionist Larry Ellison, dropped by to introduce himself as the new chief executive of Paramount Skydance, the company that now owns CBS after an $8 billion merger that promised new investment. And again, James, this is very similar to The Insider, where the story of 60 Minutes and the cigarettes company and the tobacco executives trying to get the merger, it's going to scuttle all that. It's really similar to that. As, of course, art imitates life, imitates politics. But the newsroom hasn't heard directly from Ellison since that day, leaving many apprehensive about plans for the network, the two leakers said. The anxiety's been reinforced in recent weeks as details of Weiss's likely hire and Paramount Skydance's $150 million acquisition of her online publication, The Free Press, nice work if you can get it, leaked in media outlets ahead of internal confirmation. The deal and new role for Weiss are the latest moves by David Ellison as he builds a media empire alongside his Silicon Valley tycoon father through pivotal deals negotiated and or approved by President Donald Trump and his appointees. In recent months, the Ellisons have assembled an unprecedented array of old media and new. James, maybe for folks that don't watch it or see it here, CBS is the old boomer network. That's 60 Minutes, that's the old shows, that's the old sitcoms. This is them trying to get to the head of the pack. Larry Ellison, 81, the second richest person in the world and co-founder and chairman of tech company Oracle, which is set to own a piece of the U.S. spinoff of TikTok, according to people familiar with the negotiations. And it's almost like we wouldn't know anything if people inside didn't speak out of a condition of anonymity. David Ellison, 42, made blockbusters, including the Top Gun sequel at his Hollywood company Skydance, before merging it with Paramount this summer, taking control of CBS and its other TV and movie franchises. His father provided financial backing for the deal. Again, nice work if you can Nepo, baby. The disruption at CBS News heralds the arrival of a vast father-son empire spanning Hollywood, television, and soon a chunk of a massively popular social app. What they choose to do with this staggering wealth and expanding holdings could shape the future of U.S. business and culture. If you continue to give them money, if you starve them money, they might have less to do. David Ellison's appointment of an opinion journalist to helm the network of legacy broadcasters where CIA cutout Edward R. Murrow and Walter, proud to sit on the right hand of Satan Cronkite, set the stage for a culture clash. It's not clear how Weiss will exercise her oversight of CBS News, the Free Press's campaign against what it calls wokeism in mainstream media, and Weiss, like the Ellisons, strong supporters of Israel, but her site has also been critical of Trump. So what we're hoping from the opposition is a bunch of weak-willed junk. Oh, like our old, real trustworthy guys like Murrow and Cronkite. Again, those were the great ones who never lied, and these ones are all bad, and it's all fake news. And they keep saying opinion journo, like that's not what they are. This is coming from the Washington Post. This is corporate gangster warfare. Oh man, this is really going to hurt our Amazon Prime. Israel's biggest U.S. donor now owns CBS. That from justinternational.org. And of course, the Jewish Chronicle asks in the musical question, how Jewish is Larry Ellison? Because that's an important question. And just the joke, but finally, Zionists can get their message across using media. They've really been stymied on that here the last 100 years. Barry Weiss to lead CBS News as part of major Paramount Skydance shakeup. Noted redcoat John Oliver read something Sunday about her that someone else wrote for him on his show that's named after our show. It's on his underground rebel broadcast owned by AOL, Time Warner, Discovery, 7 Arts. In related news, Warner Brothers is said to rebuff Paramount takeover approach at a low price. John Oliver, owned by Warner Brothers, is griping that he might be about to get gobbled up again, as though he's some sort of indie rebel. New CBS owner David Ellison met with top Israeli general in scheme to spy on Americans, and Bill Clinton says Trump and others deserve great credit for the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. James, a lot happens when we're not on the air for 1 week.
It certainly does, and thank you for that roundup. I think you've covered the story in a number of different ways, so I don't have a lot to add other than to back you up on that point that, yes, isn't it funny that these opinion journos are fretting about the opinion journos that are being put in to take their spots. Oh no, there is some schadenfreude to be had from this corporate gangster internal media politics warfare that's going on right now, but unfortunately, we all lose. As in the general public loses when these mega corporations control so much of the media airwaves. And yes, who's behind it? The Ellisons. And it seems to me that perhaps the Ellisons have slipped under the radar of the independent media for long enough, so perhaps we should start spending a little more time and attention on Larry and his son and their Zionist proclivities and secret meetings with Israeli agents, etc. I think there's probably a lot that deserves to be said about all of that, and no doubt we will as we continue to cover this story going forward.
And that is how we get going on this New World Next Week, episode 606, a related story and a nice transition piece to get us to our second segment. Recall, a few years ago, there was a new, I know this is out of our league in a lot of ways, a new golf league, as though I'm an expert on all the old golf leagues. A couple years ago, the Saudis created a new golf league, and there was a lot of internal hemming and hawing and clutching of pearls about whether Americans wanted to sell out and go to this new Saudi golf thing, given some of their misgivings about the world stage. Trump told those golfers, you better take the money and join Saudis Live Golf, because you're going to ultimately have to still go to them, but your price is going to go down the longer and longer you wait. He was telling them, you better go sell out now because the price is going to go down. But really, James, if schadenfreude and cringe were food, we would be eating well tonight. Our second story, the sad, unfunny spectacle of American comedians selling out in Saudi Arabia again when mainline liberal rags like The Nation can score points off of you. You know you're in the wrong. Turns out edgy free speech warriors will scuttle their principles for a check from a brutal autocratic regime. James, I was actually just playing one of our episodes previously on this date, probably back in 2021, when all kinds of rock stars who all used to really speak truth to power all told me to go vote for power and make sure I wear a muzzle while I get these weird, unsupported, untested drugs, because you always want to take health advice from rock stars. I'm hoping this destroys these stand-up comedians just as much as the fake punks destroy themselves over mandates and MAGA jabs. The Royals loved the show, said Bill Burr, recently hired court jester to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS if you nasty, on his podcast. Everyone was happy. That's a relief, because the last people in Saudi Arabia you want unhappy with you is the Saudi royal family. Bill Burr, noted stand-up comedian, had just returned from the Ryiadh Comedy Festival, which claims to be the biggest in the world. First annual! It ran from September 26th to October 9th and boasted Louis C.K., Pete Davidson, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, and many others who received significant pay bumps to play birthday party clowns to a despot. They're just like us, Burr reassured his listeners. You can't get mad at Burr for saying that about the hereditary monarchs of the House of Saud, because that's what they paid him to say. A normalization of Saudi Arabia's abysmal image worldwide, an image especially well-earned in the realm of human rights. The Saudi regime allows modern-day slavery, executions for non-violent crimes like adultery and blasphemy, as well as non-crimes like homosexuality. Again, I don't see gays being thrown off the roofs, just the places where Beyonce and J-Lo and these comedians all run off to take a big giant check. Organizers of the Ryiadh Comedy Festival, its very words hilarious on their own and unintentionally, took pains to ensure none of the performers would allude to the daily horrors beneath the glitz. Each contract signed came with a list of prohibited topics, not to mention on stage, Burr assured his listeners that the festival brass was accommodating when he totally pushed back on some of the restrictions. They just negotiated it all the way down to, like, you can talk about anything other than a couple of things, which was basically, religion. Don't make fun of the royals. Burr has ridiculed the idea of comedians speaking truth to power before, but he's also made frequent use of that American pastime. As such, when he pilloried Joe Rogan for his Maha-style distrust of masks and vaccines, derided America's epidemic of billionaires. This is the biggest sticky wicket for him. Or gleefully ridiculed the insurance industry's terrified reaction to Luigi Mangioni's assassination of a healthcare CEO. He's genuinely outraged that people die because of a billionaire elite class's decisions, which is why it's hard to watch him toss it away. I was never a fan, so it's not hard for me at all. It's, again, did you have faith? I was like, no, I didn't lose faith because I never had any in them. Comics don't have a responsibility to speak truth to power. Rodney Dangerfield wouldn't have been funnier talking about school shootings or 9/11, even though I now would like to see that since they've brought it up. AI, do that one for me. Rodney Dangerfield didn't build a career talking truth to power like Jello Biafra or all the other punk bands that we've talked about. But when you do, and then go to Riyadh, the audience isn't wrong to ask you, WTF? How can Burr even get mad about billionaires after missing that the Saudi royal family over there is just like us? Yeah, they're not like us. Dave Chappelle, who I believe Bill Burr owes his entire sanctimonious career to, if you go back and watch the show, he's in all the sketches, railed against cancel culture and defended freedom in the U.S. because the public and especially social media criticized Chappelle for his views on the Jews, the trans, and the homosexuals. He's claimed it's made his job very hard. In Saudi Arabia, whose citizens have no freedom of speech and whose government proves his point every day, he happily signed his free speech away to the regime that sends you to jail for insulting Islam. Perhaps he talked them down to the same free speech deal maybe that Burr got. If only trans activists had known what size check to cut for Chappelle, they could have saved a bunch of time protesting at Netflix. That is a brutal cut as well from the nation. Ricky Gervais once told an award show, after he also said, you all know Epstein and you all worked with him, I don't care anymore, I'm quitting and not working for any of you anymore. If ISIS started a streaming service, most of you would call your agent. He was right then and he's even righter now. Also, I think Gervais knows how to make intellectual property that people want, unlike the rest of these tragically unfunny court jesters. Soulless Chappelle takes jab at Charlie Kirk during Comedy Festival. That's kind of clickbait BS. He says, if you mention Charlie Kirk, you'll get canceled. Will that happen? Grim visions emerge from the Ryiadh Comedy Festival. Bill Burr fires back at his critics. He had some nice names to call all the people who kind of called him on his hypocrisy. And it gets even kind of funnier, James. Human Rights Watch won't take donations from the comedians who sold their soul to go do this and then took a bunch of crap when they got back home from all their former fans. They're like, oh, okay, well, I'll turn over half of this money to Human Rights Watch. Human Rights Watch doesn't want your blood money. Human Rights Watch cannot accept donations from Aziz Ansari and other comedians who performed at the Ryiadh Comedy Festival, and from one end to the other, The Nation, but then to the New York Times, why arguments about free speech don't apply to the Ryiadh Comedy Festival. Again, they think they're all Bill Hicks and Fugazi when they're really Bill Cosby and the Foo Fighters. James?
Well put. Yes, exactly right. So it is, speaking of schadenfreude, it is good to see that these comics who have spent the past couple of decades trying to build up this big thing about how they're the real philosophers and they're the real truth tellers in our society are exposed for what they really are. Literal court jesters. That's what they are. And if that's all they are, fine, whatever. They're out there to take a paycheck and who cares? But that's the point. Who cares? And I think one of the interesting points made in one of the articles that we're linking up here about free speech doesn't apply here. There's an interesting point at the end where they talk about, oh, by the way, did you know this past summer there was literally a Saudi journalist who was murdered executed, tweeted against the government and was executed for high treason. Turki Al-Jasser. So he was apparently, at least supposedly, the government thinks he was the person behind this anonymous Twitter account that was posting things about royal corruption, etc. So he literally had his head chopped off earlier this summer. Not a peep. Who cares? Whatever. Whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But some comedians go over there and everybody turns their attention to Saudi Arabia. The only thing that people care about is the entertainment and the gloss and the hype and the celebrity and whatever. And no one actually cares about the real issues, including the people who pretend to be offended when comedians go over there. No, you weren't offended when, journalists are being executed. Perhaps you could reserve some of your outrage for things that are actually happening rather than comedians going over there. But anyway, as long as it takes those comedians down several pegs so that people don't take them seriously anymore, and we don't have to listen to however many more thousands and thousands of hours of comedians pontificating about the craft on their little narcissistic navel-gazing podcasts, I'll take it.
On their podcasts that all have advertising on them. I don't know if you've ever tried to listen to any of their crap. But again, they stole the real, i.e. from us, independent, took that and just ran it to the hilt. Whitney Cummings, one of the other stand-up comedians that went there, who also, I have it on good authority from my recording studio buddy where we made the Octopus radio play, that she ripped him off and didn't pay for her podcast recording time. That Whitney Cummings, she said it's all because you're racist. That's the whole outcry, is because you're racist. But really, I think it is. It's sadly when something as good as Carlin or Hicks comes along, I think they all think they can do it. 30 years too late. Our third and final story on this New World Next Week 606, IUCN 2025 to vote on whether or not to halt genetic interventions in conservation. Now, that's a rather boring headline, but they're basically, again, clutching their pearls, wondering, should we continue with all these transgenic monstrosities and solar radiation and all of our playing God for atheists? The 2025 IUCN World Conservation Congress is underway in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Hopefully they've got some good comedy entertainment as well for the evenings. Promises to deliver one of its most consequential debates in recent years that the global conservation community has been preparing for. At the heart of the debate are two critical motions. Motion 87, outlining IUCN's policy on synthetic biology in conservation, and Motion 133, which advocates caution by seeking a halt or moratorium on genetic interventions in natural ecosystems. The Congress, which opened on Thursday, October 9th, has brought together leaders, not opinion journalists, from government, business, science, and civil society to determine whether synthetic biology is embraced as a tool to address biodiversity loss, which you're also behind, or restricted through a moratorium. Synthetic biology, which uses advanced genetic techniques to solve ecologically related challenges, presents both opportunities and dilemmas. Chrysotunity, the dialogue around synthetic biology likely to shape approaches to biodiversity protection, or lack thereof, for years to come. By Wednesday, October 15th, as I speak to you here in the States, the last day of the Congress, the world would know the outcome of the crucial vote on the motions determining whether or not synthetic biology can be responsibly deployed in nature conservation. The outcome will influence global conservation strategies and shape humanity's relationship with nature for decades. Abu Dhabi, 9 through 15 October, IUCN World Conservation Congress. And yeah, last time I checked, you can't Control-Z any of this stuff they've been doing. No undo button for nature. IUCN must say no to genetically engineered wild species. That coming from the folks at gmwatch.org. And you can find more about the IUCN and its British Eugenics Society backstory by picking up Why and How Big Oil Conquered the World, the 2 DVD set. And of course, you gotta note what Dr. Billy's up to. Dr. Gates targets low-income nations to expand access to weight loss drugs. That's the most important thing you need now, James. All the people who said, accept me and body positivity, they've all, apparently, like lots of folks do anymore, immediately run to Big Pharma as soon as things start to get out of hand. James.
All right, well, update. Reactions as IUCN Congress votes to adopt policy on synthetic biology, rejects genetic engineering moratorium. This coming from Enviro News? Is that what it's called? Anyway, Enviro News Nigeria. Following the vote at the IUCN World Conservation Congress, members have rejected a moratorium on genetic engineering of wild species, Motion 133, and adopted the IUCN policy on synthetic biology, Motion 87, a move observers see as a signal of support for a science-based, case-by-case approach to innovation in conservation. So translation into English, moratorium on genetic engineering and releasing these genetic monstrosities into the wild? No, we're not going to stop you from doing that. How about synthetic biology and tinkering with the genomes of various species to make these novel things that don't exist in nature? Yay, okay. I mean, don't worry, guys. We'll use science-based, evidence-based, case-by-case approach to this, but anyway, thumbs up, green light, go ahead. So that's where we are at. And I guess the big part of this whole charade is that the IUCN is not a regulatory body. It doesn't have any actual authority. This is just a policy position by a group. So who cares? Well, of course, all of the major academic institutions, all of the grant makers, etc., will point to this and say, see, everybody wants it. Let's go ahead. So I guess here we go. The tinkering with the genome of the planet that's been going on for decades now is about to probably hit warp speed, as it's all part of saving Mother Earth. You see, we're doing this because there's this big crisis, and the only way out of the crisis is to exacerbate the crisis. Oh, don't think about that. Don't worry, it's science-based, guys. It's science-based. So, anyway, unfortunately, the IUCN has done what the IUCN will do, and yes, you will learn at least a little bit about the founding of the IUCN and who was behind it and the types of people behind it in How and Why Big Oil Conquered the World.
Round table's gonna round table. There's been an interesting speculation here in the States, James, as we are into day 15 of the U.S. government shutdown. I haven't noticed at all. Lots of people going outside and wondering, hey, and I wonder again if this is just social media, vertical video, bull plop. Ooh, people are making videos like this. I'm going to hop on the bandwagon too. People speculating whether or not they've seen any more chemtrails since the U.S. government went on the shutdown. And as I had joked before, you can check your paycheck, and if they're not taking money out, then the government's shut down. Last time I checked, they're still taking everybody's money, so government probably hasn't shut down. But an interesting idea, and again, an interesting thing that gets people out there talking about it and looking at their skies. But yeah, no moratoriums on chimeras, James, because really, comedians and punk rockers told me to trust the science. NewWorldNextWeek.com is the source for your How and Why Big Oil Conquered the World DVD, and for other Monarchy and Corbett gear that, I guess, keeps us fear-free and ad-free. And again, James, you listen to these crappy podcasts by these comedians, like, it's mostly bullplop and talking about their sponsors. And even you did have people like Mark Maron, who recently shut down his long-running podcast, WTF. You know, he almost did it as long as I've been doing it, but also not even close. For his last episode, he went to D.C. and interviewed Obama again, which is good. That's the perfect circle, because that was his big guest back in the day that gave them both lots of cover and attention. We don't do any of that stuff. I get the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes that I play on my advertising-free, no commercial radio and news stream at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. I do that on Thursday mornings. James, there is episode 606, buddy.
It is in the can, and I'm looking forward to 607 already. Thank you for this, and we'll be talking to you again in the near future.
Thanks so much, buddy. Take care.
Take care.